Friday, the Conservative government survived a vote that could have brought down the House. And Liberal leader Michael Ignatieff stuck to his pledge that his party will take every chance it gets to defeat Mr. Harper. Well, Mr. Ignatieff, you carried out your threat and you voted to bring down the government and didn't manage to do it this time on Friday. But are you absolutely determined now, nothing has changed your mind, to go ahead with your effort to vote against and to defeat the Conservative government?
We took a decision as a party at the end of August to withdraw confidence from the government, and so we'll continue with that position. And I want to explain, why we didn't take this easily, and we didn't take this quickly. But we've got a $60 billion deficit, Craig. We've got 1.5 million Canadians employed. We've got youth unemployment spiraling up. We've got record bankruptcies. We've got Aboriginal Canadians waiting for help on H1N1, and what are they getting? They're getting body bags. We've got cancer patients waiting for nuclear isotope treatment. When you add it all up, you think to yourself, this just isn't good enough, Craig. And that's really the issue. To me, it wasn't an issue about election or not election. It was an issue of principle, because I've got a simple job, which is, do I support this government or not? And I just came to the conclusion I just couldn't keep on doing it, and the party felt the same.
And this, despite the fact that polls are massively showing Canadians don't want an election, and it may even have affected the appreciation or lack of it they have for your party right now. Hard to tell, but it looks that way. So none of that affects your decision in any way?
Oh, Craig, I've spent the summer listening to Canadians, and I always listen carefully to Canadians, and I won't be one of those politicians who pretends to you that he doesn't look at polls. Sure, I look at polls. But this was a matter of principle for me. I've got one job as leader of the opposition, and that's to hold the government accountable and then make a decision. Can I support this government, yes or no? And I just concluded, given what I've said to you about the way our economy is situating, the incompetence, the failure to deal with the questions that Canadians want dealt with, I can't keep going on like this. I can't keep propping these guys up.
Sounds to me like I'm talking to somebody who's been liberated. I mean, not very long ago, you were supporting this government and backing their budget and feeling that you were going to have to follow the economic policy that came out of the budget. Do you feel like you've been freed?
There's some liberation, but you got to be responsible here. I mean, this isn't about me. Let's run the tape back here. In December, the Prime Minister precipitated a parliamentary crisis in the middle of the worst period of economic turmoil in our history, and I just felt we had to put politics aside, and I had to support a budget about which I had substantial difficulties because I thought it was in the national interest. So we turned down the coalition, and we supported the budget, and then we watched the deficit go from nothing to 32 billion, and then to 50, and then to 55 billion. You think, these guys have lost control of public finances. What am I supposed to do here? Sit there and say, that's fine? No, I had to decide, look, this just isn't good enough.
At the time when you announced this decision up in Northern Ontario, that you were going to take the government on and no more fooling around anymore, there were a lot of nervous Nellies in your caucus. A lot of people coming to us and saying, oh my God, is this guy making the right decision? Is this the time for an election? Do you feel that you now have, by doing this, forced a sort of the caucus together, a united front?
Craig, anybody who takes big decisions, there are risks involved. There's moments of uncertainty, and I've listened carefully to my caucus, but I can tell you, we're a strong and united team, and I don't take these decisions on my own. I like being a team player. I like listening. These are elected members of Parliament who have enormous political experience, so they've got their ear to the rail, I got my ear to the rail, and we try and make a decision on the basis of principle. And it's the principle that matters here. Do you or do you not think this government's doing an okay job? And we came to the conclusion, after much painful reflection, this just isn't good enough for Canadians.
Now, you have offered apparently to speed up the implementation of the changes in employment insurance to get that out of the way, presumably so that the way is clear when your non-confidence vote comes up sometime the first week in October, I think. Were you trying to smoke out the NDP? In other words, force them to have to vote clear with the EI out of the way?
Well, I think the NDP is going to have to take a clear position on confidence in this government or non-confidence. That's how our system works, and they're going to have to make that decision, and we'll present a motion, and they'll have to make the choice. But, you know, this isn't about parliamentary games. This is about something very simple and basic to our system of government. In our system, the opposition has to ask the question on behalf of Canadians, is this government doing a decent job, yes or no? And we said no, and so we've withdrawn confidence. Other parties will have to make their choices. This is not about maneuvering. This is not about trying to embarrass Mr. Layton or put people in a corner. This is about me doing my job on behalf of Canadians.
How long then do you think this government can last? Some people are suggesting it could be until next spring. Now, you've got quite a number of chances yet to defeat them and bring in non-confidence motions. Can they continue to survive those? And you're not, if you're not going to back off, and you say you're not?
Well, look, in our system of government, Craig, as you know, the responsibility for making a minority parliament work rests with the Prime Minister of Canada. And then the other parties have to behave responsibly. I've tried to behave responsibly. I've made my choice. It's up to the Prime Minister to make this thing work, and it's for the other parties to make it work. I have no idea how long the Parliament can survive. I'm not going to sit there behaving unconstructively, but I'm saying very clearly, we do not have confidence in this government. It's for other parties to take their decisions accordingly.
Mr. Harper was back on the weekend from Washington and New York. Opposition leaders in the last few years have all made sojourns to Washington while they were opposition leaders. When do you plan to do that, especially since you have a lot of acquaintances down there? Are you going to go?
I'd certainly like to. The thing that worries me here is that we have got such difficulties with our relationships with the Americans that the Prime Minister of Canada comes out of a meeting with the President saying, here's my victory. I've got it so that NHL players can travel across our two borders. Our relationship is in such trouble we can't even play hockey together. I mean, this is a sign of how much they've let this relationship slip over 4 years. They didn't see the Buy American stuff coming. They didn't have any connection to the state houses, the municipal governments where some of these protectionist decisions are being made. They've let the border thicken up. Ask anybody in the tourism business. We have a very, very serious problem with this relationship, and I don't think I'm going to be able to fix it until I become the Prime Minister. But that, of course, depends on the people watching the program.
You have cunningly turned that into an attack on Mr. Harper, when what I was asking was, when are you going to go and meet Mr. Obama?
Well, you know, the President is a busy man. I want to get to China. I want to get to India. I want to develop those relationships. I'd like to go down to the United States pretty soon. I've got a lot of friends down there, and I think that what I want to say to them is something that Mr. Harper hasn't said. This is not a Canadian problem. This is a North American problem. The world is tearing down frontiers. Look at Europe, right? They're tearing down their frontiers, and they're becoming more competitive as a result. And we're sitting here building a frontier up which is going to make North America as a whole less competitive. That's the line we have to get to Mr. Obama, so he understands that this is not just Canadians complaining. This is about the future of the whole North American economy.
Finally, does it rankle you that a lot of Canadians are still saying, I don't know what this guy wants to do with the country. I don't know exactly what he stands for. So is the vision issue still out there? And how are you going to deal with that?
Well, I blame the press. It's all your fault, Craig. No, look, I got no complaints about anything. I put out a big speech last week setting out my vision for Canada in the world. Early next week, I'm going to have a very positive speech about my vision of how to get growth back into the economy. As the weeks go by, I've got lots of chances to tell the Canadians exactly what I want to do, because what matters is not, you know, what they think about me. I hope eventually they'll kind of think I'm okay. What matters is I got stuff to offer them that I think will help them and make our country stronger.
Mr. Ignatieff, I know you're very busy leading a political insurgency here, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Craig.